The weight of 3 unpaid bills crushed Yorke's spirit as he pulled into the winding driveway of Oakridge Estate, the sprawling mansion gleaming in the autumn sunlight like something from another world. His rusted Honda Civic, held together more by hope than mechanics, sounded embarrassingly loud against the pristine landscape. At 32, Lucas had never imagined he'd be here, a single dad with mounting debt, desperately accepting a 2-week temporary maintenance position that paid cash under the table while he waited for his contractor license application to process. "Remember, Daddy's going to work here for a little while," Lucas said, turning to his 5-year-old daughter Emma in the back seat, her dark curls framing a face that reminded him so painfully of her mother. "Miss Harriet from next door will pick you up from kindergarten today." Emma clutched her well-loved stuffed elephant. "But you always pick me up on Tuesdays." "I know, sweetheart." Lucas swallowed the lump in his throat. "But Daddy needs this job so we can fix the heating before winter comes. Just for 2 weeks, okay? Promise you'll still read me a story tonight." Wild horses couldn't stop me. He managed to smile, leaning back to kiss her forehead before helping her out of the car. After dropping Emma at school, Lucas returned to the mansion, parking his car as far from the main entrance as possible. He'd gotten the job through his friend Miguel, who worked for the staffing company that serviced the estate. The regular maintenance man was on medical leave, and Lucas had jumped at the opportunity despite knowing nothing about the property's owner except that they were rarely present. "Mr. Yorke, right on time." A stern-looking older woman in impeccable business attire greeted him at the service entrance. "I'm Mrs. Henderson, the estate manager. The owner is particularly private, so discretion is paramount." "The West Wing is strictly off-limits unless specifically instructed otherwise." Lucas nodded, taking in the polished marble and soaring ceilings. "Yes, madam, I understand." She handed him a tablet. "This contains your daily task list. Start with the pool house. There's an issue with the heating system." For the next few hours, Lucas lost himself in work, grateful for the distraction from his financial worries. The pool house problem turned out to be a simple fix, followed by several minor repairs around the grounds. By early afternoon, he was repairing a loose railing on the main terrace when he heard the door open behind him. "Mrs. Henderson mentioned we had a new maintenance person." The voice was deep, feminine, with a hint of something Lucas couldn't place. He turned and nearly dropped his wrench. Standing before him was a woman who seemed completely at odds with the opulent surroundings. Despite her obviously expensive charcoal pantsuit, there was something approachable about her. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore minimal makeup that highlighted naturally striking features. But it was her eyes, keen, intelligent, and somehow kind, that caught him off guard. "Lucas Yorke, madam, temporary maintenance." He quickly wiped his hand on his jeans before extending it, immediately regretting the informality. To his surprise, she took his hand without hesitation. "Grace Daniels, this is my home." Lucas froze. This was the mysterious owner. Not some distant millionaire, but this woman who couldn't be more than a few years older than him. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize," he started. "No need for apologies." She smiled, and Lucas noticed the slight dimple in her right cheek. "How are you finding everything so far?" "It's a beautiful property," Lucas said honestly. "That pool house heating system is something else." "You fixed it already," her eyebrows raised. "The last 3 people couldn't figure it out." Lucas shrugged. "I've worked with similar systems before." The thermostat was miscalibrated, causing the breaker to trip. "Well, I'm impressed." She glanced at her watch. "I should let you get back to work. I'll be in and out over the next 2 weeks, more in than usual, trying to actually use this place for once." As Grace walked away, Lucas returned to the railing, wondering why someone would own a mansion they barely used. The next day, Lucas arrived early. Mrs. Henderson had texted him about a leaking faucet in the kitchen that needed immediate attention. As he worked under the sink, he heard footsteps and then the soft clearing of a throat. "Coffee." Grace stood there, holding out a steaming mug. "Thank you," Lucas said, surprised by the gesture as he slid out from under the sink and accepted the drink. "I'm an early riser too," she explained, pouring herself a cup. "No one else is up at this hour." Lucas nodded. "I'm used to it. My daughter has to be at kindergarten by 7:45, so our days start early. You have a daughter. Grace's expression softened. Emma, she's 5. Lucas couldn't help the pride that crept into his voice. Smartest kid in her class, already reading at a second-grade level. That's wonderful, Grace said, leaning against the counter. It must be challenging, balancing work and parenting. Lucas hesitated, not wanting to sound like he was complaining to his employer. It can be. Her mom isn't in the picture anymore, so it's just us. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be. Emma's the best thing that ever happened to me. Lucas took a sip of the coffee. It was excellent, far better than the instant stuff he made at home. Grace seemed to study him for a moment. What do you do when you're not fixing leaky faucets in strangers' mansions? I'm a contractor, or I will be, once my license comes through. This is just temporary while I wait for the paperwork. Lucas found himself explaining his situation more than he'd intended. The construction company I worked for went under 6 months ago, right after pipes burst in our apartment. Between the move, Emma starting school, and the licensing fees. Life has a way of piling on sometimes, Grace said with unexpected understanding. The conversation was interrupted by Mrs. Henderson entering the kitchen, looking surprised to find Grace chatting with the maintenance man. Lucas quickly returned to the sink, aware he was being paid to work, not talk. Later that afternoon, Lucas was trimming hedges when he spotted Grace walking the grounds with a man in an expensive suit. They appeared to be in a heated discussion, with the man gesturing emphatically while Grace maintained a composed but firm expression. Lucas couldn't hear their conversation, but the tension was evident. When the man finally left, Grace remained on the terrace alone, staring out at the perfectly manicured lawn. Acting on impulse, Lucas approached. "Everything okay, Miss Daniels?" She turned, seemingly unsurprised by his presence. "Grace, please, and yes, just business complications." "Anything I can help with?" Lucas offered, immediately feeling foolish. What could he possibly do to help with whatever high-level business issues she was facing? To his surprise, she laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her face. "Unless you can convince a stubborn board of directors that sustainability isn't just a buzzword, I think I'm on my own." "Well, I'm pretty good at fixing things, but corporate politics might be beyond my skill set," Lucas smiled. "Sometimes I think it's beyond mine too." She sighed, then changed the subject. "How's Emma today?" Lucas was touched she'd remembered his daughter's name. "She's good, a little upset that I can't pick her up from school this week, but my neighbor's helping out." "That's difficult," Grace said. "I remember how important it was when my father would show up for events when I was young. The rare times it happened, anyway." Something in her tone made Lucas wonder about her own background. Despite the mansion and obvious wealth, there was a sadness when she mentioned her father. "Emma's adjusting," Lucas said. "We've had to be flexible since her mom left. If you don't mind me asking, how long has it been just the two of you?" 3 years. Jane decided parenthood wasn't for her when Emma was 2. Lucas kept his tone neutral, having long ago worked through the anger and betrayal. "She moved to California, sends birthday cards sometimes. That must have been incredibly hard." "It was, but Emma and I were a good team." Lucas smiled, thinking of his daughter's resilience. "What about you?" "Any kids?" Grace shook her head. "No time, apparently. At least that's what my last relationship ended over." She looked momentarily surprised, as if she hadn't meant to share that information. "Anyway, don't let me keep you from your work." Over the next several days, Lucas found himself crossing paths with Grace more frequently than he would have expected. She seemed to be around the estate constantly, sometimes working on her laptop on the terrace, other times taking calls in the garden. Each encounter left him increasingly intrigued by the woman behind the wealth. On Friday, Lucas was replacing light fixtures in the main hallway when Grace walked in, her professional demeanor noticeably strained. "Rough day," he ventured. "You could say that," she said, kicking off her heels with a sigh of relief. "Board meeting ran 3 hours over and we're no closer to an agreement. Sounds frustrating. The joys of being CEO," she rubbed her temples. "Sometimes I wonder why I fought so hard for the position." Lucas paused on his ladder. "You're a CEO." He knew she was wealthy, but he hadn't realized she was that kind of powerful. "Daniel's sustainable energy," she confirmed, My father's company, though he's been retired for years now, we specialize in renewable energy solutions. The name clicked. Lucas had read about the company in a trade magazine. They were pioneering affordable solar technology for residential use. That's incredible, Lucas said sincerely. Your company's making a real difference. Something in his tone made Grace look at him more carefully. Most people are more impressed by the profit margins than the mission, Lucas shrugged. Money's nice, but leaving a better world for our kids seems more important. A comfortable silence fell between them, broken when Lucas's phone rang. Seeing it was Emma's school, he quickly answered. Mr. Yorke, this is Nurse Phillips from Westlake Elementary. Emma took a fall during recess and bumped her head. She seems fine, but school policy requires a parent checkup. Lucas's heart raced. I'll be right there. He hung up and immediately began gathering his tools. Is everything okay? Grace asked, concern evident in her voice. Emma fell at school. I need to go get her. Lucas was already calculating how long it would take to get across town in midday traffic. Of course. Do you need anything? Just to apologize for leaving in the middle of the job. I'll make up the time tomorrow. Don't be ridiculous, Grace said firmly. Your daughter needs you. Thank you, Lucas said, genuinely grateful for her understanding. Wait. Grace held up a hand. Let my driver take you. He can get you there in half the time, and you won't have to worry about finding parking. Before Lucas could protest, she was already texting someone on her phone. It's done. James will meet you out front in 2 minutes. 20 minutes later, Lucas was hugging a tearful Emma in the school nurse's office, examining the small bump on her forehead while the luxury car waited outside. Does it hurt bad, sweetie? He asked gently. Emma sniffled. Not anymore. Can we go home now? The nurse assured him it was just a minor bump with no signs of concussion. As they walked to the waiting car, Emma's eyes widened. Is this our car, Daddy? Lucas chuckled. No, sweetie, it belongs to a friend. James, the driver, was kind and professional, helping Emma into the car and even producing a small first aid kit with cartoon character bandages, which delighted her despite not being necessary. Where to, sir? James asked. Lucas hesitated, unsure if he should return to work or take Emma home. His phone pinged with a text from Grace. Take the rest of the day. The job will be here tomorrow. Home, please, Lucas told James, giving him their address. As they pulled up to their modest apartment complex, Lucas felt a twinge of embarrassment at the stark contrast to Oakridge Estate. But Emma was already excitedly telling James about her classroom pet hamster, completely unself-conscious. Thank you, Lucas said as they got out. My pleasure, sir. James handed him a business card. Miss Daniels said to call if you need anything. That evening, after settling Emma with her favorite movie, Lucas was surprised by a knock at the door. Opening it revealed Grace, holding a basket filled with children's books, a plush toy, and what appeared to be homemade cookies. I hope I'm not intruding, she said, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. I wanted to check on Emma. Lucas stood speechless for a moment, acutely aware of his small apartment with its mismatched furniture and walls in desperate need of fresh paint. Come in, he finally managed, stepping aside. This is unexpected. I probably should have called first. Grace entered, looking not at all like the powerful CEO he'd seen in the hallway hours earlier. She changed into jeans and a simple blouse, her hair loose around her shoulders. Daddy, who is it? Emma called from the living room. This is Miss Grace, Lucas said as Emma peered curiously at their visitor. She's the lady who sent the nice car today. Emma's eyes widened. Thank you for the car. It had the softest seats ever. Grace smiled, kneeling to Emma's level. You're very welcome. I brought you something to help you feel better. She offered the basket. Presents. Emma looked to Lucas for permission. That's very kind of you, Lucas said to Grace, nodding to Emma, who eagerly accepted the gift. Oh, look, this one has elephants. Emma exclaimed, pulling out a hardcover book. Elephants are my favorite. Mine too, Grace said, and Lucas could tell from her smile it wasn't just politeness. Do you want to see my elephant collection? Emma asked, already tugging Grace's hand toward her bedroom. Emma, I'm sure, miss. Grace is busy, Lucas began. I'd love to, Grace interrupted, allowing herself to be led away. While Emma proudly displayed her treasured elephant figurines, Lucas quickly tidied the living room, embarrassed by the stark contrast to Grace's immaculate mansion. When they returned, Emma was chatting animatedly about school, and Grace was listening with genuine interest. "Daddy, can Miss Grace stay for dinner? I want to show her how I can read my new book." Lucas looked at Grace apologetically. "We're just having spaghetti, nothing fancy." "Spaghetti sounds perfect," Grace said. "If you're sure it's not an imposition." "Not at all," Lucas found himself saying, despite his nerves about hosting his employer, the CEO of a major corporation, in his humble home. As Lucas prepared dinner, he was struck by how naturally Grace interacted with Emma, helping her sound out difficult words in her new book without taking over. By the time they sat down to eat, any awkwardness had dissipated. "This is delicious," Grace said, twirling spaghetti around her fork. "Daddy makes the best spaghetti sauce," Emma declared proudly. "He puts secret ingredients in it." "Is that so?" Grace raised an eyebrow at Lucas. "Just some extra herbs and a bit of wine," he admitted. "Nothing special, don't believe him," Emma Stage whispered. "It's magic sauce." Grace laughed, and Lucas was struck by how different she seemed here, relaxed, playful, without the weight of corporate responsibility she carried at the estate. After dinner, Emma insisted on showing Grace her bedtime routine, and before Lucas knew it, Grace was helping tuck his daughter in, the two of them giggling over a shared joke. "Thank you for reading to me," Emma said sleepily as Grace finished the elephant book. "It was my pleasure." Grace smoothed Emma's curls. "You rest that brave head of yours." When Emma finally drifted off, Lucas and Grace retreated to the living room, where he offered her a glass of the same inexpensive wine he'd used in the sauce. "You're amazing with her," Lucas said softly. "She makes it easy." "She's a special kid." Grace accepted the wine. "You're doing an incredible job, Lucas." "I'm trying," he sighed. "Some days are harder than others. Like when she falls at school and you have to drop everything." "Exactly. It's why I'm so eager to get my contractor's license. Being self-employed would give me the flexibility to be there for her more." Grace nodded thoughtfully. "What's the holdup with the license?" "Money, mostly," Lucas admitted. "There are fees, insurance requirements. I've been saving, but unexpected expenses keep cropping up, like burst pipes. And car repairs, medical bills when Emma got strep throat last month." Lucas trailed off. "Sorry, I don't mean to unload my problems." "Don't apologize, I asked." Grace's expression was unreadable. "You know, the estate needs a permanent maintenance manager. Mrs. Henderson mentioned the current one is considering retirement." Lucas blinked, surprised by the sudden change in topic. "Are you offering me a job? The position comes with housing. There's a cottage on the grounds. Good salary, benefits." Grace took a sip of her wine. "You could save for your license while having stability." The offer was tempting, almost too tempting. "Why would you do that for me?" Grace seemed to consider her answer carefully. "Because you're good at what you do, and because—" She hesitated. "I like having you around, both of you." Something shifted in the air between them. Lucas became acutely aware of how close they were sitting, how the soft lamplight caught the auburn highlights in her hair. "I should probably go," Grace said, setting down her glass. "It's getting late." Lucas walked her to the door, conflicting emotions swirling inside him. At the threshold, she turned. "Think about the offer, no pressure." "I will. Thank you for coming tonight. It meant a lot to Emma." "And to you?" Grace asked quietly. "Yes," Lucas admitted. "To me too." Something passed between them, a moment of connection that transcended employer and employee. Then Grace nodded and slipped out the door, leaving Lucas to wonder what had just happened. The next morning, Lucas arrived at the estate with Emma in tow. It was Saturday, and his regular sitter was unavailable. "I hope it's okay that I brought her," Lucas said to Mrs. Henderson, who looked down at Emma with thinly veiled disapproval. "It's against protocol," the older woman began. "It's perfectly fine," Grace's voice came from behind them. She smiled warmly at Emma. "In fact, I was just about to have breakfast on the terrace. Would you like to join me, Emma?" Emma nodded enthusiastically, taking Grace's outstretched hand without hesitation. "I can still work," Lucas assured Grace. "She has her books and coloring supplies." "Nonsense, it's Saturday. Besides, I could use the company." Grace glanced at Mrs. Henderson. "Please make sure Mr. Yorke is only assigned essential tasks today. Family comes first." The morning passed pleasantly, with Lucas completing necessary repairs while checking in on Emma, who was thoroughly enjoying being treated like royalty by Grace. After lunch, Grace suggested they all take a break to explore the estate's gardens. "These are the prettiest flowers I've ever seen," Emma declared, carefully smelling a rose under Grace's supervision. "The gardener would be thrilled to hear that," Grace said. "He takes great pride in his work." Lucas watched them together, struck by how natural they looked. Grace patiently answering Emma's endless questions, showing genuine delight in the child's discoveries. It stirred something in him that he hadn't felt in a long time. As they walked back toward the house, Emma spotted a swing hanging from a massive oak tree. "Can I swing, Daddy, please?" "Sure, sweetheart," Lucas said, helping her onto the wooden seat. As he pushed her gently, Grace leaned against the tree trunk, watching them with a soft expression. "This tree has been here longer than the house," she said. "My grandfather built that swing for my father, and later my father pushed me on it." "Did you grow up here?" Lucas asked, surprised. "Not exactly. We lived in the city most of the time, but we'd come here for holidays and summers." A shadow crossed her face. "After my mother died, we came less frequently. My father buried himself in work instead." "I'm sorry about your mother," Lucas said sincerely. "I was 12. Grace's eyes followed Emma's delighted swinging. "That's why it's wonderful to hear laughter here again." The weekend passed too quickly. By Sunday evening, Lucas was fixing a problem with the irrigation system while Emma dozed on a lounger on the terrace, worn out from a day of exploration. Grace sat nearby, working on her laptop but frequently glancing at the sleeping child with unmistakable affection. "Have you thought about my offer?" Grace asked quietly when Lucas came to check on Emma. "I have," he admitted. "It's very generous, but I don't want charity." "It's not charity. It's a legitimate position that needs filling." Grace closed her laptop. "Though I'll admit my motivations aren't entirely professional." Lucas's heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "I'm not in the habit of visiting employees at their homes or spending my weekends showing their children around my garden," Grace said, meeting his eyes directly. "I like you, Lucas, both of you, more than I probably should given our current relationship." The admission hung in the air between them. Lucas had been fighting his growing attraction to Grace, telling himself it was inappropriate, impossible given their different worlds. "I like you too," he finally said, "but I don't want a job because of that." "Then take it because it makes practical sense and we'll figure out the rest." She stood, moving closer. "Unless I'm misreading this entirely." "You're not," Lucas said softly. Their first kiss was tentative, questioning until Emma stirred, breaking the moment. "Daddy," she mumbled sleepily. Lucas pulled back, his face flushed. "Right here, sweetheart." The following week brought a whirlwind of changes. Lucas accepted the position as estate maintenance manager, and Grace helped expedite the process of moving them into the cottage. It was small but charming, with 2 bedrooms and a view of the gardens that enchanted Emma immediately. "Are we really going to live here, Daddy?" she asked as they carried in the last of their belongings. "Yes, sweetheart. Do you like it?" Emma nodded emphatically. "It's like a fairy tale house." As they settled in, Lucas and Grace cautiously navigated their evolving relationship. They agreed to take things slowly, especially around Emma, but it became increasingly clear to everyone, including Mrs. Henderson, who had warmed considerably to the new arrangement, that something special was blossoming. One evening, after Emma was asleep, Grace and Lucas sat on the cottage's small porch, talking late into the night. "I never expected any of this when I took that temp job," Lucas admitted, his fingers intertwined with hers. "Neither did I," Grace said. "I'd almost given up on finding someone who saw me for me, not my position or family name." "I didn't even know who you were that first day," Lucas laughed softly. "Exactly." Grace squeezed his hand. "You fixed my pool house heater and treated me like a regular person. Do you know how rare that is in my world?" Over the following months, their relationship deepened. Lucas excelled at managing the estate, implementing energy-saving improvements that impressed both Grace and her business associates. With the stable income and benefits, he was finally able to complete his contractor licensing requirements, though he chose to remain at Oakridge. Emma thrived in her new environment, developing a special bond with Grace, who never tried to replace her mother but instead created her own unique relationship with the child. They planted a small garden together outside the cottage, Emma proudly growing elephant ear plants that Grace had specially ordered. There were challenges, of course. Some of Grace's business associates raised eyebrows at her relationship with an employee. Lucas sometimes struggled with the imbalance in their financial situations, insisting on maintaining his independence. And they both had to learn to balance their work commitments with their relationship and, most importantly, Emma's needs. 6 months after Lucas had driven up the winding driveway of Oakridge Estate, he and Grace sat together on a bench overlooking the garden where Emma was carefully watering her plants. "I have something to ask you," Grace said, uncharacteristically nervous. "That sounds serious," Lucas replied, turning to face her. "It is." She took a deep breath. "I've been offered the chance to lead a major sustainable energy initiative in Europe." Lucas felt his heart sink. "How long would you be gone?" "That's just it, I'd have to relocate." "For at least 2 years." Grace held his gaze. "But I don't want to go without you and Emma. You want us to come to Europe. I want us to be a family, Lucas, wherever that takes us." She pulled a small box from her pocket. "I was going to wait for a more romantic moment, but I've learned that life doesn't always give you perfect timing." Inside the box was a simple but elegant ring. "Are you proposing?" Lucas asked, stunned. "I'm asking if you and Emma would consider making what we have official, whether that means moving to Europe or staying right here." Grace's voice wavered slightly. "I love you both so much. I never thought I'd find this kind of happiness, especially not when I was burying myself in work to avoid the emptiness of this big house." Lucas looked over at Emma, contentedly talking to her plants, then back at the woman who had transformed their lives. "You know Emma will insist on elephant decorations for the wedding." Grace's face lit up. "Is that a yes?" "It's a yes," Lucas confirmed, pulling her close for a kiss. Later, when they shared the news with Emma, her reaction was pure joy followed by practical concerns only a 6-year-old could have. "Does this mean Miss Grace is going to be my other mommy?" she asked. "If that's okay with you," Grace said carefully. Emma considered this seriously before nodding. "It's okay, but can we still have our garden if we go on an airplane to Europe? We'll have an even bigger garden," Grace promised. "And I bet they have elephants in the zoo there." "Real ones," Emma gasped. "Real ones," Lucas confirmed, his heart full as he watched the two people he loved most in the world make plans together. 1 year later, Lucas stood in the garden of their new home in Geneva, watching Emma show off her expanded elephant plant collection to her kindergarten friends at their housewarming party. Grace joined him, slipping her arm around his waist. "Happy?" she asked. "More than I ever thought possible," he answered truthfully. "When I took that temp job, I was just trying to keep our heat on for the winter. And I was just trying to avoid board meetings by hiding at the estate," Grace laughed. "Look what we found instead," Lucas said, pulling her close as Emma ran over to show them her newest treasure, a small stone elephant she'd discovered in the garden. "Look, it was waiting for us here," Emma exclaimed. "It's a sign we're supposed to be here." As Grace knelt to admire the find, Lucas reflected on the journey that had brought them here from a struggling single dad, taking a temporary maintenance job, to a family building a future together. Some might call it luck, but watching Grace and Emma together, Lucas knew it was something much more powerful. It was love, found in the most unexpected of places, between a CEO and a contractor, brought together by chance, and held together by something far stronger than the walls of any mansion could ever be.